If you have numbers
believe
in your
that.
name, it's over for you. That's all I'm saying. Like, you cannot have
What
numbers
about
in your name.
369?
He's
Yeah, but
really
like
good.
369, okay, you can have
He's
only
really
numbers.
good,
You can
Dom.
either have only numbers. You can't have the random number at the end, is what I mean. You can't be like
Okay.
Mike 9 or whatever, you know?
There's a lot of gaslighting happening from the Rivera house today. What is up, League of Legends family? How's it going? LoL Esports still alive and well after many of the major regions had finished things up. We had the LPL crown their champion, one to rule them all, and the LEC still going on with their playoffs. Now, we know one of the teams that are already seeded into the finals, Dgon, Dom, and Monty here to break down the action across global League of Legends. Shorter show, so let's dive into how you guys are doing. Monty, how are you, man?
Really surprised, but pleasantly so, about BDS. Somewhat alarmed about Mad Lion's ability to qualify, but we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
I knew it. I knew we were gonna get some format talk here.
Oh yeah,
Dom,
it would not be a show without me complaining about formats in some way, shape, or form.
Dom, you had a couple days off, and then you're straight back to the grind. Just watching you go from LEC wrapping up to straight on over here. A couple people were like, "Oh, he's gonna take 15 minutes." I was like, "This dude is giving you so much free content. He can take 15 minutes."
Shut the hell up.
How you feeling, brother?
You just want Dom to be in a catheter with like a toilet under his chair the whole time, hooked up to IV.
I don't even take long. I normally am just here
slamming
immediately. I'm
Cliff
like the first
bars
one
in
here.
Soylent.
Like, hey, are we doing it? This is the first time where we had to wait on Dom. Kind of. Even then, it was fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Same as always. I'm excited to not have to wake up at 3 a.m. For 2 months. It's like crazy. Like, I always get this amount of like this dopamine as soon as LPL ends, where it's like, oh my god, I can sleep like a normal person again. Like, being able to just wake up at like 6 a.m. and feel rested and stuff is just crazy.
Yeah, and with the European schedule for MSI, it'll probably be a quite convenient time for you.
Yeah, it'll be probably like 6 or 7, I would assume.
Probably later, I would think.
I mean, last time when it was in Iceland, it was like 6 my time. And I think that they're probably going to do it in order to try to capitalize on Eastern viewership to do it a little bit earlier.
Well, we'll see. I'm glad that you're getting the rest and whatnot, but still finding ways to grind it out with EMEA Masters and whatnot, man.
Yep.
The grind continues. Well, the grind won't continue for one of the greats in North America. Our first topic of the day. Bjergsen retired. He did that last week, but we didn't have time to dive into it because it was our marathon extravaganza episode. We have time to dive into it this time. Bjergsen announcing his retirement. He said for the first time, but it wasn't really for the first time. He said it before, but then gaslit everyone right to our faces, saying that he doesn't understand why people thought he did. He
didn't retire. He transitioned to coaching.
He used the word retire. That's why. I don't
remember what specific language he used, but it wasn't like, it sounds like he's really like done with esports now.
I mean, he literally said, "I'm retiring as a player." And then in the video that he posted recently,
was it untrue? Everyone. Was it untrue?
Yes. Yes, it was technically untrue.
I mean, someone could argue that he remained retired in spirit.
I mean, to be fair, like his placings, like even getting like 3rd and 4th is better than a lot of these like players have ever done that are still at LEC or LCS. So yeah, it's I mean, look, all I'll say is I thought it was so funny because I made a video when he retired originally where I just talked about him. And then when he's like, dude, I don't know why anyone thought that I was retiring before. I mean, I just said I was like coaching. I was like, what the fuck? Wait, maybe
English isn't his first language, okay? Give him a break.
I was like, fuck, bro. Like, I just took everything at face value. He never even said he was retiring, and I just assumed he was retiring. Like, I must be fucked up. So then as soon as I said that, the editor for Last Free Nation sent me a video that he did where he actually included the audio of it, where Bjergsen is saying, "Yeah, I'm retiring from professional play as a player and moving to coaching." And I was like, "What the fuck is going on here, man?" Like,
So we will. I promise, guys, we will dive into the actual retirement, what it means. But right now, we're kind of talking around some of the outside things around it. So another, I guess, piece that came out of Bjergsen retiring was the fact that he told 100 Thieves an hour before the announcement came out, Nate Shot went on his podcast, on the 100 Thieves podcast, said, hey man, like, that wasn't cool. I have nothing but respect. And then he later came out and said, I have nothing but respect for Bjergsen. That action is not awesome for our team and moving forward for us as an organization. Bjergsen said, yes, I probably could have handled that differently. No malintent, blah, blah, blah. But again, the power of leaks and the power of not really thinking about anything else right there, and how it could have been a lot more damaging and what it does mean for 100 Thieves later on. I mean, if you're running an org there, Monty, you understand what Bjergsen's doing, but how much does that make you upset that he doesn't trust you or whatever, that your team now doesn't have an opportunity to plan for the offseason?
Here's the reality of the situation. Bjergsen didn't have a good year last year on Team Liquid. It was clear that he was probably one step away from retiring anyway. He took a massive pay cut this year in order to play for 100 Thieves and to keep playing, compared to the 7-figure deal he had on Team Liquid last year. And so both he and Doublelift are not among the most highly paid players within the LCS right now, not by a long shot. They took smaller deals, and they have a lot smaller deals than they've accepted in the past. So if I'm 100 Thieves, I got this guy for a bargain, but you literally already have Unforgiven as a Doublelift backup because he can't be relied on and could retire at any point in time. So I feel like this was in the cards with this signing. You were getting a great deal on Bjergsen in order to increase your team's popularity. And frankly, I don't think it's that bad from Bjergsen because he didn't do this at the 11th hour, like after MSI. There are still months in order to, find another mid laner for this roster. He did it basically right after the playoffs were over. I don't think he screwed anybody over. And if he wants to retire on his own terms, absolutely telling 100 Thieves more than an hour in advance would cause it to ricochet around the 100 Thieves office, and then someone would leak it. That's what would happen. So if he doesn't want it leaked, that's really the only way to do it, in my experience in esports. People talk constantly, to the degree that Dom and I might have known, an hour after he told them if it wasn't going to be, made public. So,
for example, the Winsome thing, him playing in finals, that was I knew that on Tuesday. And if I know it, just offhand, I'm being told Winsome is replacing Ayla. If I know it on Tuesday, think about how quick people would know something about Bjergsen's retirement, knowing who Bjergsen is to the community. Bjergsen is literally one of the most popular players. No one even gives a fuck about Ayla and Winsome.
And here's the thing. If I'm Bjergsen and I want to get my message across, and I think he did post a very thoughtful video that he wanted people to watch to hear his reasoning. If it starts to leak, then all people do is read the headline and a shitty little blurb on an article because you have to leak it as fast as possible. And then they never get to actually see him. And he doesn't get to communicate what he wants to communicate to the community. He gave 100 Thieves the maximum amount of time to fix the problem, and I think it was very responsible. He didn't waffle around and keep them on tenterhooks saying, oh yeah, I might come back, I might not come back, but here's a surprise video that is, at the end of MSI, so screw you guys, you have no time in order to find this. I really don't see the problem. I truly don't. I think it's not really a big deal for 100 Thieves. They should have known that this was going to be a possibility either from Doublelift or Bjergsen. Wouldn't surprise me if Doublelift also stepped back as a result of Bjergsen not being on the roster any longer, because Doublelift was only, going to go back to TSM if he could play with Sword Art, and he's had all these conditions based on his play. And so I'm not sure he wants to go back to this roster to potentially play with 3 rookies. You know what I mean? Might be a hard sell.
Sure. Couple things that you brought up. I think one, you're right on being able to retire on your own terms, because I did sit and watch the whole video. And now that you brought that up, I probably would not have watched the whole video, but I sat down and watched the whole thing. I'm trying to decide, is it because it was Bjergsen I watched the whole video? And I was like, no, it's because it's coming from him. He's the source, and
exactly
no one else leaked it.
And I
100% would have leaked that shit if I got it first.
Of course. And I saw that video immediately as he tweeted it, and I watched it. And look, I agree with, I think this is a good conversation about pro players, but Bjergsen has made a lot of money. He will be set for many, many years to come if he manages it properly. But his whole life. I mean, maybe not his whole life. I mean, it depends on if he makes good investments or what he does, how he lives his life, but he certainly is going to be okay for a long time. And he has all these other opportunities now. But you know, I know Bjergsen, you know, mildly well. I used to sometimes like go out to lunch with him, and we wouldn't talk about esports. We just talk about his other intellectual interests. And he has a variety of interests. He reads a lot, you know, wants to talk about that kind of stuff. And he never got the chance to go to college. And he's a very smart, thoughtful guy, interested in philosophy, interested in kind of intellectual exploration of a variety of topics. And he's had to sacrifice all of that to be singularly minded on League of Legends. And I think, you know, that became his whole identity in a lot of ways. And I think one of the reasons why he reached out to me and we had these, you know, these moments was because he wanted somebody to talk to him about something else. Right. um, and I, I think that sacrifice, I think he's just done with it. Like if, you know, if he can't be on top anymore and he's not able to give himself fully over to the game, or it isn't quite as good any longer, why not just live his life and go pursue other things? Like, why not, you know, if I'm him, why not think about going to college now? You can pay for it. You could go to certainly a very good university. They'd accept you even at his age with the background that he's had because it's interesting. And just think about that. Take a few years just to develop yourself, because that's what a lot of pro players lack. They literally, I mean, the reason why pro players behave the way they do is because they are playing a video game 16 hours a day and they never go outside. And all of the critical development socially and intellectually that happens with people in their late teens and early 20s is just completely skipped.
I think it's partly that. I think it's also the massive amount of pressure that you're on, like that you're under
Course.
as a player. That just like it's very hard for people that go from being like maybe a little bit more on the reserve side. I think generally it's overstated where they're like every pro player that's ever existed was a fucking like loser in high school, getting shoved into lockers and getting like rejected by girls. Like that is like that's how people try to sell it. It's more just like when like no one is used to dealing with like fame or having hundreds of thousands of people criticize them. So when you take people that are young and you put them in this situation, like a lot of them are just going to react negatively to just the amount of stress that comes and the pressure that comes with just the territory as well. So I mean, I just wanted to add that in there because I feel like that's a part that people kind of skip over. They're just like, I mean, it's just because they're just unsocial fucking losers. That's why pro players behave the way they do.
Yeah. So, you know, there is like, there's a robbery of people's young adulthood that happens within esports. And part of it's great in that a lot of these guys get to travel the world. You know, they have extremely, you can't be a pro player at the top level without a very good work ethic and discipline for the most part. And so I think that they gain skills that'll set themselves up later in life in terms of work and diligence, but they don't get to grow and develop and explore. Really, you're in a gaming house, you're in an office playing a video game under very heavy scrutiny, as Dom pointed out. So honestly, just knowing him, I think that I think it's great. I feel really good for him because I don't think it was worth it for him any longer. And I think what pro players often struggle with is that they don't know when the time to step away is. And they keep wanting, because the thrill of winning is just so intoxicating, that they want one last ride, especially if they were on top at one point in time. But the value of that just keeps getting less and less and less. So I'm happy for him. Hey everybody, MonteCristo here, and we have a new sponsor this week that here at Last Free Nation we would love if you would support. And it is something that I'm really excited about, and I've actually been using a lot myself, and that is Liquid IV. For those of you guys who don't know, Liquid IV is a category-winning hydration brand fueling your well-being, and their hydration multiplier is the one product you've been missing in your daily routine. I do a lot of heavy cardio at the gym with Muay Thai. And so I've actually been using their energy multiplier, which actually contains caffeine as well. You pour this packet into 16 ounces of water and it'll give you electrolytes, vitamins, a little bit of sugar to keep you going during your heavy cardio activities. It's been awesome for me. I've been enjoying the yuzu pineapple flavor. It's been really, really nice. But if you've been using a lot of these supplements, time to consider Liquid IV. It hydrates you 2 times faster than water alone, with 3 times the electrolytes of traditional sport drinks, and it contains 5 essential vitamins, B3, B5, B6, B12, and vitamin C in 12 different flavors. It's good for more than just working out. Gonna say, you had a hard night of partying. This might make you feel a little bit better in the morning. Also, it's festival season. Obviously, Coachella is going on right now, but if you are out in the heat for a long time this summer, you're gonna need some of those electrolytes back, and to get the water into your system just a little bit faster, I recommend this. I've been really enjoying it, as I said, and you can get it in bulk nationwide at Costco, or, and here's the discount for you guys, you can go to www.liquidiv.com, use the code LFN at checkout to get 20% off your entire order. So anything you like, 20% off with code LFN. Again, supporting our sponsors really helps us. So if you are working out, if you've got long, hot days in front of you, working outside, this is a great product to keep you going. Thanks a lot to Liquid IV.
The other pushback I had was what you said about double lift. I don't know if he's gonna step away. I think he really enjoyed from just from the interviews and just being around him like a lot, because he always got requested up to the media room and always had to wait. I feel like he enjoyed being back and proving that he still could do it, and felt like, man, there was definitely room to grow with Busio and with the team. Obviously, Bjergsen leaving is going to be a tough one. You do have a replacement there in your coach, Nuke Duck, who could possibly just fit right back on in. But maybe you're right in terms of like who they get in mid lane. And that's kind of what I wanted to transition to now. What does this mean for 100 Thieves? Bjergsen stepping down. Where do they go here, Dom, in terms of other players? Let's say Nuke Duck doesn't want to step back in, or let's say he can't or doesn't. Who else is available? Who else is out there that can
I mean, you have an import slot. So theoretically, everyone is available, right? Like you could get somebody like Vedio, who's not playing right now in the LEC, who, you know, looks good. I mean, I don't think that they like the guy that's under Bjergsen, Pretty. He's been like a perennial challenger / like tier 2 player. And I feel like 100 Thieves wouldn't want to take a risk on somebody like him. They would probably just go for a more prestigious talent. But I would definitely think that like importing mid, I mean, with what we've seen in the LCS this year, I think it would just be the logical solution. I don't think there's anyone in North America right now that looks like they would just not at least have some amount of like learning curve. And you already have the project with Tenacity and Busio. You already have rookies in the team. I think you probably just look for like somebody who's decently stable.
Okay, let's go.
Honestly, look, Jizuke, I feel like he's actually a great player to put on one of these teams. Like if you're if you're on a top team where you're like, okay, we just need somebody who's like super solid, super consistent, then you don't go for Jizuke. But if you're on a team that's like that needs that guy that could like pop the fuck off and be like one of the best in the league, or he could just be like bad. If you want somebody like that, I feel like that's perfect for Jizuke, because he will, like, he has a chance to elevate your team, and you've seen what he's done in LCS. Like when he came to LCS, people rewrite the history, but the first year he was good. Then he got benched for like, essentially he got benched so that Huni could play, because there was the import problem with Bang.
Right.
So he wasn't
for Golden Glue.
For Golden Glue. Like people try to be like, oh, he was benched for Golden Glue. It's like,
that's
no,
not what happened. Yeah.
Kumo was benched for Huni. That was the situation. So that was what happened there. And then in the next year, he ended first team All-Pro. Like his last season, he was considered like the best like mid laner in regular season. So yeah, I mean that would make a lot more sense than taking a risk on a just complete rookie to me.
Also with the kind of like late scaling, we know what Doublelift is. He's late scaling, generally stable, wants the resources, but we've seen him just hold his lane. He can hold his lane for sure with Busio. So if you throw in, Fire in the mix there, because another name that came up from chat, good job chat, Bwipo is one that came up. Takui, because he's in EMEA Masters. He's on Team Go, I think. So like there are some old names here of players that won accolades in North America that aren't necessarily a North American mid, so you're not worried about that. But Takui was really good last year as well, and just ended up getting bumped for Vikla, which makes sense. It makes sense why FlyQuest did that.
I mean, I'd rather watch 100 Thieves with Jizuke. That actually sounds fun to watch, frankly.
Well, also if you think about what the team's big issue was, which was like inactivity before they started playing their like press R comps, like you want somebody who's willing to get things done on the map, because it's not like the team, they have a lot of like people that are trying to work together. It's kind of like they need set plays, they need very like obvious ways to engage fights for them to see the angles where they can play the game. So yeah, I just think that having a player that has a natural active tendency in their game would be beneficial to a team like this, where they're kind of on the side of like doing nothing if something doesn't look very obviously good.
Jizuke closer on the same team. Nuke Duck trying to keep the boat together. This sounds fun. This sounds really fun. To close off the Bjergsen segment, because obviously we need to talk about Hunter Thief.
Well, we can talk about his legacy a little bit, because I know Dom feels very strongly that he was, the best player in North American or LCS history, I should say. And I think like he did have a very fantastic legacy, especially in the early to mid days of LCS. And I think why people have been, including us, have been criticizing him over the last couple of years was that he used to be just this insane playmaker that could turn games on their heads and really, make the creative outplay, or when his team was behind, do the right thing to win the game. And it just feels like he lost the killer instinct. And I think that's what was so disappointing about him.
I think that he just lost the ability to outplay people consistently. So it wasn't even that he lost the like killer instinct. I think that it's just that when he would go for plays, he would just, sometimes flub them. He would mechanically misplay. And a lot of the times it just felt like he just wasn't good enough at the end to make use of the champions that were strong in the meta. So obviously the Annie Lissandra, they ended up having to go to like the standard old man champions where it's like you just press R in the team fight and you don't have to mechanically outplay people. You can just you can just play the fight correctly and you're going to end up seeing results. So I think that's big. But yeah, the one thing that I always say about Bjergsen is that people really underrate how good he was back in season 5, like in season 5, season 6, even though his team was terrible. I mean, there was a reason why it was Bjergsen in 4 wards. Like his team was running it down and he was solo killing, like gapping people mid lane. Like he was shitting on some of the best players in the world. Like it wasn't one of those things where, oh, well, he would go to Worlds, but of course he couldn't contend with the Korean mid laners. Like, no, he could beat Korean mid laners. He could just beat like, I remember just watching him beat Nagne's ass in a fucking series. Just like, just beat his ass. Like,
Nagne was get his ass beaten enthusiast. So,
I mean, but he was
in important games.
Yeah, but I mean, he was getting it done in Korea. He was getting to fucking Worlds and shit. So like, it is what it is. Like those were the people that were coming out, and Bjergsen was like outlaning people. He looked like he was just a level above. I mean, he really was in the early days like the closest thing that the West had to like a faker player.
And I can say just from being in Korea at the time that he was one of the players that Koreans would regularly talk about, and not in a sense of like, oh yeah, we're just gonna give him some credit in order to make Western fans happy, which they occasionally do. Both he and Doublelift had very good reputations within Korea. Doublelift because he was so good in the early days in like 2011, 2012.
Played in Korea in 2012
when he played there, and he did well individually. And so they always had the fans and the players always had a, earned degree of reverence. And the same thing was true of Bjergsen. A lot of Korean mid laners did genuinely think he was a very good player.
What was your favorite moment? Do you have a favorite Bjergsen moment, guys?
No, I coach CLG. I have a lot of salty Bjergsen moments.
Give me one of those then. Give me one of those. What is the saltiest Bjergsen moment?
We were in like a game 3 in playoffs. I think this was 2013. And he was playing Twisted Fate in the 3rd game of the series and completely turned the game around and prevented us from going to the LCS finals. So that was really disappointing. I mean, it was just infuriating to play against him because you could think everything was going fine in a game, and then all of a sudden it would just completely shift into TSM's favor because of a play Bjergsen would make.
How about you, Dom?
Well, I think if something that a lot of people don't know is that I was like pretty good friends with Bjergsen in like season 5, season 6. Like we would duo queue every single day after scrims, like on stream and stuff. And I just remember like a lot of like funny moments just playing together. So for example, there was one clip that we had back on like Plays TV in 2015 that was, I guess, semi-viral at the time. There was a couple 100,000 views on it, where I'm playing Thresh and he's playing and he's playing like Yasuo or something. And he goes into the base and I tell him that like I have a lantern for him. I'm like, oh yeah, you can make this play, like I have a lantern for you. And I just purposely like drop the lantern on the other side of the wall just to like, just to fuck with him. And then when he actually gets over the wall, I like flash away and the lantern just detaches so he can't actually grab it and he just dies. And I just remember I thought it was so funny because he was just like, Dom, what the fuck, man? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, and I guess just like those were just like, good times. Like, yeah, I mean, he's just he was somebody who I just had a lot of respect for. Yeah, I mean, I liked playing like, the game with him. Like, I thought he was always really, really insane. He was just the best in those early years. So yeah, I guess that was probably my favorite Bjergsen moment, was just griefing him on stream. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to grief him on stream in solo queue. His team griefed him, every season. So it worked out.
Yeah. I guess I am a little bit sad that he chose the timing that he did so that we didn't get a big moment on the LCS broadcast itself. And it feels like because it's not going to be until June that the LCS restarts, that we're probably just not going to get a big Bjergsen moment, maybe on day one of the LCS, but it will be several months in the past at that point in time.
Well, again, saying goodbye to one of the great just dudes, humans, examples of excellence that we got to have in North America. One of the first guys that we claimed as our own that wasn't from NA, and so thank you to Bjergsen. Best of luck in the next future endeavors. Hopefully, selfishly, he finds a way back into the league ecosystem and is able to expound on all these experiences that he's had.
I hope he goes and does something entirely different.
Okay.
And, I think he would do well with some time just really by himself doing something completely removed from this.
Yeah, that sounds actually so nice. I'm jealous of that, to be honest.
See,
it's like I feel like that's probably so cool to just have like time to like work on yourself and like not have a ton of commitments, because you got to remember he's just had LCS season commitments, and also if you knew how he was as a person, he like his off time was him trying to get a level up on the competition going into the next season. So it's not only just like maybe he would take a break from playing League because he'd find a better use of his time, but to Bjergsen, like a better use of his time would be like reading performance books on like how to optimize performance like in a competitive environment. So he would read all these types of books for like, he'd spend a two weeks where he's not playing the game, but he's also doing things to try to prepare himself for the season.
Very
I mean, he
was in psychology books. I talked to him a lot about that as well. Yep.
So that was a huge part of the way that he was as a person. So his breaks were not the way that we see breaks. Like other people will take breaks where they're like, yeah, I just didn't touch League for like 2 months and I was playing like WoW or something. Like he never took a break like that. Like his breaks were, how do I still, put myself in the best position to win worlds? Like I know everyone will meme that now because it's like, oh, you never got close. You never got to like semifinals and finals. That doesn't detract from the fact that he was putting his everything into trying to accomplish that goal, which is something that a lot of players won't do. And I think the biggest mistakes he made were kind of like decisions around like rosters and things like that. But in terms of his own personal effort and the way that he prepared himself as a player to try to accomplish that from the years of like 2014 to like 2019, I think that he was really just taking things to another level in terms of how hard he was trying in the West. Like we didn't see that out of players. So that's one of the things I respected the most about him as a person. I just thought that was next level to see that amount of care. Like he was the type of person that he would take hits in his relationships. Like he would potentially just like have to end a relationship because it was detracting from him being able to accomplish this goal that he put above everything else. So that's just something that was super respectable, and I just always I admired that about Bjergsen. I think that he is one of the few Western players that at the end of his career he can say, yeah, I tried my best. I tried my best to win worlds. Agreed. And it didn't happen, and I wasn't even close at points, but I actually put in the effort. Like he can rest his head on that for sure.
There you have it. NA GOAT, the NA GOAT, right? I think as you've said multiple times there, Dom, I agree.
LCS GOAT. The NA GOAT is double lift, right? Like he's not.
Yeah.
He's not actually North American. That's the thing.
Yeah, he's the LCS GOAT though. Like I think it's not even like It's not even that close. Like Doublelift has the accomplishments, which is what you have to like hang your hat on. If you're like a Doublelift fan, like he has the titles, right? Like that's what people say is like, oh, like Doublelift has more titles than Bjergsen. But if you look at like who Bjergsen was with some of those early teams, like the thing is, you go back to season 6 and season 7, and you're like, oh, look, Doublelift and Bjergsen, they're both getting titles. Like, so I guess they both get like a title each during all that period. Like Bjergsen he was in God mode. Like he was going to win titles regardless of who he had. So it's like Doubles is along for the ride in some of those early titles. I mean, he was just the best player in North America. He was the NA faker at that point, the LCS faker. So yeah, I mean, it's if you go and you watch the games, which I did recently. I did a 6-hour stream where I went back and I watched a lot of these games. Like you really start to see like how different Bjergsen really was.
All right, guys, there's a lot of Bjergsen love out there. So give us your favorite Bjergsen moment in the chat and in the comments. And also, who is your GOAT? Is it Bjergsen? Is it Doublelift? Now, Bjergsen stepping away. Doublelift can continue to add to that.
Bjergsen your GOAT, or are you wrong? That's what you get to decide.
Basically. All right. With that, let's move on to other topics for the day. We're going to a little segment of keep or kick. It's an LEC version right here between Mad Lions and Vitality. Let's head into it. All right. Mad Lions, Vitality, both in the LEC playoffs, but now you're starting to see some cracks in the armor. We saw it earlier with Mad Lions. Now Vitality just lost that series to BDS. Not 3-2, not 3-1, but 3-0. We got to see
games were very winnable by Vitality.
Yeah.
So.
You got to see good Bo, and then we got to see really bad Bo. Really bad Bo. It was oh no Bo. We need a nickname for it or something there. So we got to keep or kick one of them. Mad Lions, Chasey, man. Chasey looked good. He looked super good, man. I'm on the Chasey.
Yeah, I mean, he looked good when he was playing against Oscar, who's literally a rookie, and then Finn.
Yeah, he looked super good.
All right. Look, I have to say, like, so much of the talk, obviously, with Upset joining Vitality is this up? Surely it's this time for Vitality, right? Like, I have to admit, I was intaking so much hopium because I just keep doubling down on the hopium.
You are.
Every time. They just get me every time. They're the new razor cake. But, hopium is great, but I can't use my freeze pipe on hopium. You know what I mean? Didn't see that one coming. So, if you would like to get a freeze pipe, which supports all of us here at Power Spike, you can go to www.thefreezepipe.com and use your promotional code LFN for Last Free Nation and get 10% off your entire order. It is 420 this week, guys. We're recording this on April 17th, so there's still time to get yourself a nice gift. They have good glass, and by the way, guys, it will take that glycerin chamber, pop it into your freezer for 1 hour, and then it will cool your smoke by over 300 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you might not feel so bad about Vitality losing. It will make your day better. I promise you that.
All right. Okay. There we go. Look, there's one thing to say on this topic. And the one thing to say is that if you are a fan of Europe, you want Mad to be kicked. You do not want Mad representing you.
All right.
That is the main thing.
All right. So let's talk about the format, because what I didn't realize about the championship points format. So to explain to you part of the problem that we're going to discuss as part of this segment with the keeper kick is that Mad Lions, by reaching the finals and placing second, have 100 championship points, right? And so because the final 4 teams are G2, BDS, and Team Vitality, it's the winner of the who goes to MSI is the winner of winter and the winner of spring. However, right, if G2 wins them both, what happens is it's championship points. And what I didn't realize, guys, is that while summer has different numbers of points that are given out, they have winter and spring splits have exactly the same number of points given out for first, second, third, fourth, all the way down to 10th place, right? Now, this is a huge issue. So I can just tell you, back in the day, time for Old Man Monty, when we did the 3 tournaments, so the similar structure, winter, spring, and summer in OGN, they were increasing every split. the number of championship points so that spring would be worth more than winter and then summer would be worth more than spring. However, by maintaining this parity, we are now in a situation where if G2 wins, Mad Lions basically, they will be going because BDS is now in this final, right? So if G2 gets even to the final and G2 wins, then Mad Lions will have more points than BDS because BDS only got 30 points by finishing 7th place last split, and Vitality got 50 points by finishing 5th place. So basically, if you don't want Mad Lions to win, you want not G2 to win too. BDS or Vitality have to win. And if Mad Lions win, then they deserve to go, obviously. They will have completed their turnaround, even though I find their play rather suspicious at this point in time. But yeah, there is a very real opportunity because we all know how this works with G2, where they look kind of shit and then they win anyway in the end. So we are in a precarious position where Mad Lions could very well place 4th place. G2 wins the whole thing and they go to MSI, which is bad. And it just means that the spring split points should have been worth more so that we weren't in this problem. Like, I don't understand why Riot made this decision.
Sure, there's a couple options. Number one, you just have the best of 5 between the team that had the second most points or the third most points to alleviate
that would be
this.
Great too. That's a very good point.
That's a way you could alleviate it. But then the other problem is this. If you consider Mad Lions' position, if they beat G2, that then means they have to win the split. It's almost beneficial in a way for them to lose to G2.
Yep.
And then have G2, like, because they think that G2 has a better chance of like beating BDS and beating Vitality later on. And maybe
I hadn't actually considered that, Don, but you're absolutely right.
Because think about it from Mad Lions' perspective. They've had a bad run into Vitality. I think they're actually 0-4 this year into Vitality. Like, they haven't won a game versus Vitality. That's a really bad matchup. So if they beat G2, they have to play against Vitality. But if G2 end up beating Mad and G2 plays against Vitality, it looks like a much more even matchup. G2 has a higher chance of winning that, and that could be beneficial to Mad Lions. So it's so fucked up to even think about this stuff existing. But yeah, I think the biggest issue that you end up seeing right now, and the reason why people are scared, is that even though BDS won and like Vitality lost, like Vitality looked pretty bad and BDS didn't look flawless. And you still feel like if G2 gets into form, they'll just be the best team in LEC. Like they still just seem like they're the best team if they're playing well.
So dangerous, you know what I mean? Like I watched some of those games versus Koi, and I'm like, this team is still quite good, especially when they're ahead. And they're still very creative and unique in terms of the way they play the game.
And for Caps standards, Caps has been underperforming recently. Like he's not playing super well. But how horribly has it aged for people that were super far out on Caps when he was having bad splits before, or he was like playing like a bad series or a bad tournament? Like this guy has always been the guy that's been able to come back and just have a mega series or like go international and show you something that you haven't seen from a Western player before. So you never feel like you're out on G2 completely. Yep. And if G2 just beats the shit out of Mad, we saw Vitality shit on Mad like 2-0, didn't even look like that close. Like Vitality wasn't even playing that well, but it still looked like Vitality was going to win those games. Like throughout the whole series, you just felt like Vitality was going to win. And if you see G2 just beat Mad, it's like, nice. So then Mad got to MSI by beating just Astralis and Fnatic.
Barely Fnatic. Barely Fnatic.
Barely Fnatic. Barely Fnatic. And then
in
Astralis.
The fiesta to end all fiestas.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you even think about the other side of things, Koi probably, like, if G2 beats the shit out of Mad Lions, then Koi also, you'd have to say, like, comparatively, I know this math doesn't work perfectly in League, but if you see Koi do well against G2 and G2 ends up winning, and then you see Mad get hard beat by G2, it's hard to think that Mad Lions is even better than Koi at that point as well. So Mad Lions might just be like the 5th best team in LEC, and they might go to MSI because of format. That's crazy.
I don't mind the fact that they might be the 5th best team. I mind more that there's this competitive integrity question now for this next match, this match fixing question, right? If you're Mac is one of the most stand-up dudes that I've met so far.
We have a new
yeah. I don't think they would, right?
I don't think they would either, but like
but it's so
there.
I've been in the same situation as well, and I remember I wanted to intentionally throw a match in LCS, and our organization like didn't allow us to, but there was a situation where it was better for us to throw a match in tiebreaker, because the difference between finishing 1st and 2nd was first team gets to play against, I think, second place got to play against Team Impulse, and first place got to play against TSM, and this was in season 5. And it was actually beneficial to play second because you didn't want to play against TSM. TSM was kind of like G2 at that time in North America, where you had the sense of like, yeah, they're 5th right now, but if they get it together, it's over for the rest of the fucking league. So I've been in the same situation myself, and I just feel like
that's why it's good
weird
that they implemented a lot of these format changes, such as the top seed chooses their opponents. That way you can't like throw for seeding in the same way.
It's not even that good of a change, because if you think like you get to choose your opponent within your group, and it doesn't even necessarily matter, because if you get like a shit group.
So I was talking about your LCS scenario, not the LEC.
Just in general. Yeah.
Just in general.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a good change. It's definitely a way better change than, what we saw previously. But still, I mean, the point stands. Like the fact that Bad could be incentivized to lose, the fact that they could get to MSI without like winning a best of 5 this split, the fact that there's the 2 group format. So like the 2 group format, there's good parts of it, but one of the flaws of the 2 group format is that if like 3 of the best teams are on one side of that bracket,
right, which is I think what we saw this last time.
Which is something that, which is what we could have seen this last time. If one of those groups is unbalanced, like maybe Astralis is just worse than the teams that were coming out of, like Koi, G2, BDS. Maybe Astralis is just worse than those teams. Very possible, right? The groups being so unbalanced is really negative when it comes to the points mattering so much and teams being decided, their placing into MSI being decided on championship points from previous splits. I think that's the biggest issue here.
All right. So we wanted to highlight the very interesting point situation that came about this 3 split structure and how it's showing face now and how it might affect later on in Worlds. But where are we going with this in Keeper Kick?
I just don't understand why they didn't do 120 for winter for the winter, 150 for spring, 180 for summer. Like you literally can just increase by 30 points, the top position. And that would solve a lot of your problems, and increase by 25 points. The second position for third place increased by 20 points. And then you literally just have, a tiered structure that goes closer and closer. Maybe they didn't want to do that because MSI is supposed to be the halfway points. So they didn't want to weight it so heavily to before MSI. There are reasons that you could do this. Honestly, I think a lot of this is going to get solved next year because of the rumors that there's going to be a third international tournament, which I've heard as well. And I've also heard that they're going to move over to the LEC format for LCS or something very similar to it. So that's going to be on the table as well.
But anyway, back to an invitational anymore. It's going to be like try season. I
mean, look, it was never an invitational, so it was already a lie of a name. They were not inviting teams were qualifying into it. So it was already a bullshit name. So is it more bullshit now? I guess slightly, but it never really was realistic or based in the fact of the tournament in the first place.
MSI sounded better. MSQ sounds like some sort of stock kids put money in, and then
MSI sounds terrible. Mid-season invitational doesn't even sound prestigious. They could have come up with a million better names, but as we know, the creativity and operations at Riot is somewhat lacking, as evidenced by 10 years of their formats.
I mean, also it's kind of weird because like in other Riot games, like for example, TFT, they have the mid-set invitational, which is also MSI. So they have like multiple different MSIs within like
also,
the same...
MSI is literally a major PC manufacturer that gets confusing when you're dealing in a PC gaming space. There's a billion reasons.
Mid-season qualificational, main story quest, the mid-season SmackDown. We can just go MSS. That's cool. I like that. And that seems riot-y. They're like, it's fun.
It's called the Xiaohu Cup. In honor of his accomplishment.
Yeah, we should start naming it after our pros, man. We got a couple legends out there. That would be really cool. All right.
So anyway, back to the Keeper Kick. Look, I think Vitality was pretty disappointing today, and now I think in retrospect we can say that they probably had a much easier group. I guess but at the same time, they weren't playing the same level of fiestas that Mad Lions. It's just so hard for me. So here's the difference that I can sum up between these two teams quickly. Mad Lions generally has like they kind of play to team comp win conditions and have decent macro, but one player will always just randomly send it in Mad Lions and then make it very difficult for them to win the game or turn it into a complete clown fiesta, drag it out to 40 minutes. The problem with Vitality is that they can have some of these early games that are somewhat strong and get leads, but then they completely ignore their team comps, like walk into choke points against like Cassiopeia, Wukong, and then just completely int. Which is very confusing. And I just wonder what communication is like on this team, because they don't seem to be able to play. They can skirmish okay, but they don't seem to be able to identify how to play as a unit quickly and set up their team compositions for success later on in the game. So that was interesting. They kind of, this is going to be a weird comparison, but they kind of feel in a way like Team Liquid from last year, where they can play so many different things, but they never actually learn how to play those things together as well as a unit. And then they bounce around between all these wacky team compositions and execute them all badly, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
So look, I'm keeping Vitality because frankly, I just think that you can't ignore this group of players, and they're just better. But Mad Lions, I mean, they continue to be frustrating because you see the glimpses of potential greatness, and then it is immediately 180 by somebody doing something fantastically irresponsible within the game. And that's what's I just find them more frustrating. Both teams are frustrating, don't get me wrong, but Mad Lions is more frustrating in a way.
And also, it's always somebody. It's not one single person. It's been that whole roster. One person will do something stupid, and it's a different person every time. Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I think just Mad Lions is just a worse team than Vitality objectively. Like, they beat them every time that they play against each other. I mean, even though Vitality got beat by BDS, I don't suddenly think Mad Lions is going to like beat BDS. So, I mean, yeah, I'm not very confident in Mad Lions in general. Also, their games are they just don't really make sense, and they rely on a lot of specific picks. Like, who knows, if Fnatic just don't give Gragas in game number 1, Fnatic probably just beats them, like, and Astralis qualifies like to this next stage. So who knows, man. I just think that Mad Lions is they're just not very good. Also, they're crutching super hard on Carzzy getting jinxed all the time.
Yes.
Where
or potentially Zeri as well. But yeah, Carzzy has been playing well.
I mean, his Zeri is like not scary. I mean, his Zeri is the Zeri where you just pick it in a team comp and you let him do his own thing, but you never put all the eggs in the Carzzy basket. You don't give him like a Lulu and you're like, all right, we're going to play front to back for you. It's all on you. We're playing like 3v5, but you're a super strong Zeri. You're going to carry the game. So I'm just not a huge fan of Carzzy. I just don't think he's like, even when he plays on his top level, I just don't think he's a top tier 80 carry in Europe. I would much rather watch somebody like Upset or somebody like Crowdy or somebody like Hans, you know, with their leads than Carzzy. And also, like, 80 carry just matters a lot right now, so they're pretty unstable. I'm just not a huge fan.
Mad Lions, man. What do they got to do for some respect? They've been near the top of Europe for the longest time now. Let's see if they're able to bounce back. Same with Vitality now. This is the hype roster. Just that didn't look good. Today didn't look good with BDS kind of stomping them 3-0. But that is the team that we will be keeping as they kick Mad Lions. Before we get to the next segment, I got to ask, what do you rate Headband Reckless? You know, we've had multiple different Reckless versions, but he rolled out with the headband, hasn't shaved in a little while. I was like, okay, we've got challenge here as tennis coach, right?
I think there was a problem with it because it seemed like in that final base race, the headband actually slipped off his forehead and went in front of his eyes, and he wasn't able to see the Nexus. So he just flashed randomly and lost the whole game. So I think it ended up just being a negative for the team overall.
Oh man, yeah. Just there's been evolutions of the Reckless, and now tennis coach Reckless. That I feel threatened. All right, let's go to our Galaxy Brain Club discussion today. We're going to be taking a dive into MSI with most of the teams qualified for MSI already. Still waiting on LECs, but it'll give us a nice little idea of the preview, the format, and what gets us most excited for it. Let's get into it. Okay, MSI. Just a couple weeks around the corner before we descend upon London. Kind of crazy too, because I think this is around the same time that the coronation of the new king of England is happening as well. It's going to be very, very crowded.
And the coronation of the new kings of League of Legends, Gen G, Chovy. God Emperor.
Wait, what happened to T1? T1's not favorite going in anymore?
Look, I like Gen G, Dom. Why? Stop talking about me as I'm the T1 fan here.
He does this every show.
I swear every show was me trying to say that T1 was not as good, and then you saying that they were the best team in the world. Was that not every show that we had before?
First off, they were the best team in the world for a significant part of the season. But we also agreed that Gen G, in every time, like the second round robin and in the playoffs, that Gen G had a good shot to win that series.
So he did do that. He did do that, Tom. I feel like
they were close games. We talked about how they were close.
I was painted to be the T1 hater on the show. Like I was the one that was constantly arguing that T1 was not as good as everyone.
You were. Yes, look, so Monty was playing like, hey, look, it is T1 is the best in the world, but his favorite team and the team that if they got it together was Gen G. Like he always did that. He always did that.
Say thank you,
Dgon. You're right. So both of you are right. Both of you are right. You were the T1 hater, and you always will be the T1 hater.
Dom, you get me conflated with the constant input that you receive of people flaming you from hating T1, which I never did.
I mean, they're pretty fucking hateable, bro. Especially like if you just think about if you take away
Dom,
the hatred,
I am not the face of YouTube comments, okay? Like
all I'm saying is think about T1, like, so what type of players do you like in general? Like one thing I've always liked about players, if you look at some of my favorite NBA players, are players that are super clutch. It's something that I value a lot in a player. I just think it's so fucking cool. Geez. Like when I was a kid, I would watch Michael Jordan be insanely clutch, and then I would be counting down like in the drive, like 5, 4, 3, 2, and then like shoot, and I would miss it. I'd be like, fuck it, that was just a fake one. Like we're running it back, and we just do the same thing again. Like I thought being clutch was such a cool fucking thing, right? It's like why Damian Lillard is one of my favorite players. Like Dame time is a thing for a reason. And like T1 is just anti-clutch.
You're a big John Elway fan, right?
I don't think I watched that much John Elway like in the 90s.
Yeah, he's the guy you definitely want in that category.
Yeah, I mean,
high magic.
I mean, but that was just something that I valued as a person. So when I see people that are like really good but are not clutch, like that actually like kind of triggers me in a way. You know, like that. Like
how could you be that good?
Why Perks, for example, was like people always flame me because Perks was like is my favorite player, even though he's like not that great anymore. I always just thought he was super clutch.
Show that he was not that great today. I agree with that assessment.
Yeah. But I mean, the reason why I always respected him is because I felt like he was the best in the biggest moments.
I agree. I mean, he is clutch as fuck. You saw that even when he was in LCS.
Yeah, when he was in LCS, that was like the reason why they actually won a title and why they ended up making it out of groups for the only time in the last like half a decade. So yeah, I mean, this is just things that I value. So it's multiple layers, Monty. It's not just I hate them because of the fan. I hate them because of multiple reasons.
Right, and I also think that had the T1, and I agree with you about the anti-clutch factor of this T1. That's why we discussed, their 20% finals win rate over the last year and a half, 2 seasons, which is so disappointing. But they were incredibly dominant during the regular season, and they were incredibly clutch in those games. But
are they not the favorite coming into MSI?
That's an interesting question.
Is that finals enough to take them from being like best team in the world by far? Like even if you look at like all the sports books, T1 was massive favorites over Gen G.
Well, that was ridiculous, and we discussed that as well.
Yeah, but even on like the ones that weren't as like even when the odds were released, like T1 was considered heavy favorites. Like they were heavy favorites by everyone on the broadcast as well.
I just don't think that, given their streak of performances in finals, I don't think that they can be considered favorites because they haven't been able to actually close on a finals since spring of last year. And as we discussed, they were the favorites heading into the World Finals. And by the way, the people who I saw nitpicking in terms of comments on this, they were not the favorites to win Worlds before going to Worlds, but they were the favorite going into that final. They were. That's not even a question.
Yeah.
Everybody
was like,
Worlds everybody thought it was going to be a 3-0 in those finals for T1 because everybody thought eventually DRX was going to turn into a pumpkin because they had been a pumpkin for most of the year. They just managed to keep the miracle run, and they did have some very impressive clutch performances. But again, part of this is the anti-clutch. They were favorites in the MSI final, not by a lot, I would say, not by a lot. There were mixed predictions about that one. They were not favorites in the summer finals from last year, but they were heavy favorites again.
They were the best team in a neutral meta.
Spring. Yeah,
is what they said on the broadcast. They were the best team in a neutral meta. And I guess it just wasn't a neutral meta in summer.
I don't know what that means, but sure.
No one knows what that means, but that's just another way that you can just slide in the T1, like the T1 praise.
I don't know what a neutral meta means, but anyway, I think that they were heavy favorites again. So out of those 4 finals, MSI, Worlds, Summer, and Spring, they were favorites in 3 of them. And so that's the problem, is that when we talk about are they favorites, there is now such a intense pattern of them not performing when they are heavy favorites, and especially Zeus, that it's hard, I think, to predict them against some of the other teams that are going. And I think the other thing too is the question is, what happens in double elimination? Because Gen G, I think, showed remarkable adaptation and very good preparation throughout the double elimination bracket. They lost to T1, then they faced KT, had very specific strategies in order to counter KT's style, completely dismantled them in all of the different approaches that KT has. And then they did exactly the same thing to T1. And T1 didn't have anything surprising. And in fact, T1 showed very poor prep over the playoffs. They were very poorly prepared for KT in that series and should have lost that series. And they were very poorly prepared for Gen G in the final.
I didn't push too hard last time on T, and this is going to bring us off the rails a little bit, but just did Gen G completely counter everything KT did? I felt like KT had 2 leads in 2 of those games. And I felt like they kind of overplayed their hand, and then Gen G punished really hard. But it felt like KT was in control of the game.
So I think what you have to remember is that when KT was playing against the pick compositions, they were going to have significant advantages in a straight up 5v5. And so even if KT has leads, you have to be able to create a pick in order to continue those leads. And I think that the map movement that Gen G had, gluing support and ADC together so they wouldn't get TF ulted with the Tom Kench, right, was really smart. And they just deathballed the entire time, and there were no opportunities. And so they forced the 5v5s that they needed to win.
I say, okay.
Yeah, it was that was not a draft. Like it was because of the way they played out the draft versus the draft that we saw from KT that was very successful.
Okay. All right. Didn't mean to derail us too much, but it was just the second time. I was like, yeah, okay.
No, I mean, they basically beat KT with all of KT's weapons on the table, and they gave them those weapons, and they knew how to play into them. It was really honestly, that is probably my favorite series tactically of this entire year so far. Just because it was so interesting from a team tendency perspective, and how Gen G plays their compositions in each of those games into KT is very good. I thought it was a great series. Anyway, KT's not going to be there. Gen G is. I think Gen G's coaching is better. Score, their head coach, who everybody at the start, all the Korean fans were like, oh, I can't believe you're hiring this guy right out of the military. Now he has 2 titles and has been to all 3 finals since he's been a coach. Much different than his pro playing career, which took him forever to win a title. And he's still the best player to have never won Worlds.
Yeah, we got the inverse over at Team Liquid, right?
So best player to never win Worlds. That's a crazy title.
Yeah, I think he's the best jungler of all time. So I think he's the best player to never win Worlds. So he's gotten, he didn't unfortunately win Worlds this last time, but I'm hopeful for Gen G, as they go to London. I'm not sure who I think is the favorite. That's an interesting discussion to have, especially given the JDG versus
team. That's like it's always a Korean team, because the way that when Korean teams look good, they just play way more stable than LPL. So if you go back through history, a Korean team has just been the favorite almost every single tournament that's ever happened. It's very rare that a Chinese team was ever the favorite, right? Like if you look at 2020, Dgon was the favorite going into Worlds. You look at 2021, Dgon was the favorite again. 2021 summer, spring at MSI, Dgon's the favorite. Obviously, when they got to the finals and Beryl was having a horrible tournament, maybe it changed, but I just mean going into the tournament, Dgon was the favorite. Last year, T1 was the favorite. Then Genji was the favorite in summer. Dgon was the favorite in 2021. Koreans are always the favorite.
I mean,
the favorites because they play more clean. When they're winning, there's less flaws, and people will always look at like LPL teams and be like, oh, well, this is like a huge mistake. Like this is a place where like Korean teams are just gonna shit on them.
I think Genji and JDG and
IG?
Top all
Oh my
had the
God.
same odds this last year. So I think they all had the same odds before the start of the world's main event.
I can't believe somebody said IG when they weren't even the favorites from the region.
Yeah.
They weren't even like they didn't even win their region.
The thing about the Chinese teams is it's like because they all have very distinct styles, it's like whichever team's style syncs up the most with the world's meta usually is the one that goes on a tear. Whereas Korean teams, I think, tend to play
I don't even
more
think that's
uniformly.
I don't think that's even necessarily true if you look at a lot of the like LPL victories, because LPL teams, they normally end up just playing the way that they play, regardless of what the meta is. So like 2019 FPX, I mean, look at what they were doing. It's like Nautilus mid was not the meta. It's just they were winning with it, so that it became like what people thought was the meta. But the winning like the championship style is not always the most meta style. I mean, look at a DRX, for example. I don't think that they were playing the meta. I think that they were playing certain champions really well, but like game 5, they're picking Bard and stuff like that. That definitely is not meta. I mean, yeah. IG is also like a team where like top carries were not something that people thought were super OP going into the tournament. So I think it depends. I think that meta is it's not even like, well, like the meta is not even what the team that wins the tournament is playing most of the time. Like I would say that Dgon in like 2021 is playing more of what the meta is, like the Rumble jungle and stuff like that, where Wei is just not playing Rumble jungle at all. He's just playing the stuff that he was playing during the spring split. He's playing like Udyr and things that he was playing previously. So I'm not 100% sure I agree on that.
So to kind of push, not even push back, but when I'm looking at the MSI qualified bracket stage, right? Korea gets 2 seeds. This is based off of ELO, right? Like this is off last year's performance, or not last year, but several years performances.
Yes,
over time.
Because they won Worlds.
Or is it because they won Worlds? That's what
basically they had out of the finals, 3 of the 4 teams in the international finals were Korean teams, right?
Got it. Yeah.
So only RNG was not. So that's why they have both teams have a direct pass into the bracket.
Okay.
Whereas everybody else's second team has to go through play-ins.
Yeah. So I throw that out there because there's a reason why Korean teams are the favorite. Generally, they have been performing well. They just haven't won. Or they haven't, won recently. But like I was looking back at the old MSI qualifiers as well. Damwon came in as the number 1 because they had just won Worlds, coming back off that, and then RNG.
Yeah, but I don't understand how that works the other way, because in the previous one there was more LPL teams in the semifinals than LCK teams, but LCK won. But then the next time there's more LCK teams in the semifinals, but LPL wins, but then LPL's not the finals there as well. So like that's where I see the disconnect.
Discretionary choice from Riot, and they're never going to explain it to us. So. Well, anyway,
more games for a Chinese team for the LPL.
Look,
which is where
I think I was not particularly thrilled by the LPL finals. I don't think it was like, it's not that it was a bad series or anything. It was just relatively one-sided in favor of JDG.
Yeah, you didn't feel like BLG ever had a chance, even when they won the game. It's like,
Yagao had kind of a off series, and even though Knight had some kind of questionable games as well, his Annie was not great.
Konami was so good.
I think like it was still, I mean, Ruler was fantastic. Like I think they did very well overall. 369's Gragas in the final game, obviously fantastic. So the thing about JDG is that they are so good at these skirmishes, and 369's map awareness is just wonderful a lot of the time, with the way that he will help out other lanes. It enables Ruler to carry so hard. If you get Knight on some of these hard engaged champions like the Ahri, he looks really fun to watch. So I mean, I think JDG is a team that when you give them those leads, it's very, very difficult to beat them, and it's also very difficult not to give them leads just because they skirmish so effectively as a team. So certainly they are I would say they're absolutely capable of winning MSI and should be considered kind of like a co-favorite going in. The star power is huge.
Yeah, star power is big. I mean, it's just the thing is JDG is not very consistent. Like they have games where they look really rough, and sometimes they're early. And the thing that's the most sketch about them is their early games. Like their early games sometimes are just terrible. But I mean, outside of the first meeting versus BLG with JDG, I mean, 369 has just been mega consistent. Like that's his thing for the last like year at this point. He's just been like consistently like ahead as a weak side top, and in this final series you really saw why people value him as the best top laner in China. It's the fact that he'll neutralize a player like Bin. Like he'll take a matchup that's not considered good, he'll be fine in the lane, like he's not gonna like lose the lane, and then he's just first in every single team fight, and he team fights better than almost everyone else.
I mean, that last Gragas game where he was just one step ahead of Bin on basically every play and TPing into the bot lane, and I mean, his Gragas, he's just the best Gragas player. That's it. At least in the top lane, he's absolutely amazing on this champion, and what he can do to assist his carries is just crazy. And so it's really fun, and it was really fun to watch Ruler this series as well. So I look, I think Billy had an underwhelming performance. Like as good as Yagao was for a lot of these playoffs, he was not very inspiring in these finals, and I think that was a pretty big point of weakness on the side of Billy. I don't think Billy is a better team than Gen.G or T1, but on a good day, I think JDG can be.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it depends, right? Like, so if BLG meets T1 in the finals, I mean, then it's BLG all day. But like, if they play earlier in the tournament, I expect like a T1 like 3-0 or something like that. I think that BLG, they theoretically match up really poorly into JDG when you look at like player for player, mainly because Bin is the person who normally is able to get massive leads on enemy top laners with his carries, and you can't normally do that versus 369, which is why it was so surprising in the semifinals where he was actually able to get these leads and he was solo killing 369, because 369 is the guy that's never giving you those opportunities. He's always super stable. So I think that there's definitely like ways where BLG can just beat almost any team if Bin gets his champions. Like he just lanes carry top lane champions better than almost anyone else in the world. If you give him Jax, Fiora, Camille, these types of angles, he's generally going to smurf. If you give him a good Gwen angle, I mean, remember last MSI, right? Like he won MSI playing 3 very good Gwen games. He's playing into a matchup that should be a counter. Like the Jace is supposed to be a counter to the Gwen in the lane because range champions are good into Gwen. And Bin, like, he's even in CS, loses some turret plates, and then goes into the team fights and completely like takes over. So I think that Bin is somebody who's scary. Also, I think Bin is a relatively clutch player. If you've seen him throughout history, like think about Worlds 2020 when he like showed up on the scene. That's like a fucking 17, or I think he might have turned 18 during that tournament. That's a 17, 18-year-old Bin playing his first international tournament, getting a pentakill in finals on Fiora. I mean, he was a huge point of strength for that team the entire time. The other international tournament he went to was that last MSI. So when we've seen him go internationally, this guy has been mega. He has been one of the best top laners at the tournament. So I think that teams will look at BLG and be like, oh, they're not that strong, they have all these flaws, etc. But when you play in the game versus these guys, I think that they have some pretty clutch players on this roster.
When we take a look at the play-in groups, because I was just looking at it, remember this year's tournament a little bit different. Play-ins, 3 teams from the play-in. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 play-in teams for 3 spots into the bracket stage. This is going to be, I think, kind of brutal for some of them. I mean, you got Billy in there. G2's currently filling that spot out for, we all know it's going to be Mad Lions now that we've already talked about it. So Mad Lions. And then Golden Guardians, PSG Talon, what will probably be Gigabyte Marines. Again, Levi, the only name that you know on there. Detonation Focus Me with basically the same guys from Japan that you know. Steel, Arya, Utapon, Harp. Movistar R7.
Oh wait, no, Evi's not on that team.
Yeah,
never mind.
They killed him.
I got confused. I haven't been watching LGL as closely as before.
Movistar, Rainbow 7. So Rainbow 7, the organization that's been there forever. They have mostly new players. You have Audi and Mirio coming back, but Audi's been there for a while. And then Loud has Robo, Tinones, Those
They're
are two
back.
guys that everyone knows. They're back again, just like back from Worlds. This just feels pretty
And
brutal. That's why I was asking earlier.
More people have seen them play than apparently
LCS teams.
LCS.
Yeah, I knew.
Had a higher peak viewership on the finals and had a higher average concurrent viewership on the season. So
It's only because of Easter. If it wasn't held on Easter, it would have been higher for LCS.
Yeah, I mean, Brazilians aren't Catholic or anything, Do they have a playoff on Easter? I don't know.
Wait, did they play? Did they play on
They
Easter?
did play on Easter.
It's just the religion gap.
Qualification date was they qualified yesterday. So
Okay.
Yeah.
or on Saturday, excuse me.
Yeah, I'd hope that viewership be larger. It makes our narrative
really
better.
It's really just the average viewership over the whole season that I think is the most embarrassing.
Yeah.
But there was a couple co-stream, like Afro and Sapnap's co-stream weren't included in the viewership numbers on that site, so that was the
that would have pushed it over the top.
Yeah,
it would not have, guys.
My point there being for the play-in stage with such big names from the major regions and then Golden Guardians, PSG Talon, obviously there. Is there room for it?
I mean, Junjia is a beast. This guy is like really fucking cracked. He was somebody I wanted to see in LPL for a while. I mean, he would always show up, like when JJ would play bad, he would always show up and like get a few games and look pretty promising, and then he would have like one bad game and you'd never see him again. But I've always been hyped on Junjia, also because he's just a solo queue beast. So when I'm just like looking around for picks and I want to see what people are playing in solo queue and I'm like surveying pro players, a lot of times Junjia will pop up. He got, I don't know if he got rank 1 on the NA ladder. He got rank 1 on the EU ladder. He either got I think he got rank 2 on the NA ladder or something crazy. He's been like at the top of the super server. He's been at the top of the the Korean ladder as well. He's just a like really insane mechanical jungler. And I would just love to see like him play and just pop off against some of these teams. Look, I could see them beating Golden Guardians. I mean, that's all I'm saying. Like Golden Guardians, I would be kind of and look, fucking Mad Lions is going to be there. All right, we already know Mad Lions is going guaranteed. There's no chance Mad Lions does not end up going MSI at this point. So I don't know.
Sorry.
PSG, they're going to take some heads.
Sorry if you saw earlier in the episode and you felt differently. We just did that to, we already know how the script goes, right? Gave us that one. And yeah, it's Mad Lions going on in. Is there a player or a team in this play-in stage here, Monty, that jumps out at you or that you would be interested in seeing?
Chovy. Oh no, he's not the play.
He's not in the play.
Dude, T1 did not win. I know you just want to say the T1 won. So T1 actually lost. Like we just caught Monty lacking.
I unironically want to see Licorice in the play-in stage. I want to know which version of Licorice that we're gonna get.
Monty, I'm just saying we cannot deny reality on Power Spike. We already do that enough on the LCK broadcast. Like here, we need to be honest about the results.
I know when you're saying like, yeah, I can't wait to see Licorice. I was like, Licorice. Oh yeah, that's right, Golden Guardians. That's right.
yeah. He actually, Licorice is in fact making a return to international competition. Because look, the reason why I say that is it's going to have a huge effect on who actually makes it out of these play-in stages and whether he can hold his own against some of the minor region top laners. Like, and there's a world where Licorice either holds his own and wins accolades for being able to make it to the next stage of the tournament, or he gets dumpstered by a Japanese top laner and Golden Guardians doesn't make it through and the whole thing's ridiculous.
And Golden Guardians goes on to pick up that top laner with the new import rule going to 3 next year.
Oh my god.
So whenever he returns to Detonation Focus Me, we pick up whoever the fuck is playing top lane for them right now.
Toll. TOL2. Toll2. Toll2 is his name. Toll2. TOL2. The number 2. Toll2.
Has anyone ever heard of this person?
I've never heard of this
lives?
I mean, this whole roster hasn't changed except when people leave. So like they're like, all right, Abby, if you want.
Sometimes, and then when they are dropped by their rosters, they come back. That's how it works.
If you have numbers in your fucking name,
1,000% be back on this roster. By the way,
if you have numbers in your name, it's over for you. That's all I'm saying. Like you cannot have numbers in your name.
Yeah,
but like 369, okay, you can have only numbers. You can either have only numbers. You can't have the random number at the end is what I mean. You can't be like
Okay.
Mike 9 or whatever, you know?
There's a lot of gaslighting happening from the Rivera house today.
Like you can have look, there's a difference between one number, like your name only being numbers, and then your name just having like a random number. Like, did you never play Warcraft 3 ladder like when you were fucking?
Oh, I did a lot.
Yeah. And how bad was every player named like Mike 24 or some shit? If you had a name like that, you were automatically a noob. You're gonna fucking be terrible in the game. So yeah.
I guess for me, just a quick shout out to Utapon, the long time AD carry for Detonation Focus Me. The esports writer Fion on Fire dropped this fact: 15 domestic championships for Detonation Focus Me, 5 in a row over the last 2.5 years. Yes, there's a joke there, but also this is the most dominant franchise in League of Legends, right? In their region, their most domestically dominant franchise in League of Legends, because that and maybe Gigabyte Marines, because we always see Levi like find a way back to the world stage or something. But just always fun to see them.
Right. And also they were not favored, by the way, going into playoffs. It was Sengoku, who, by the way, Reaper is now coaching. So Reaper lost 0-3 in the finals in grand Reaper tradition.
Oh. Also, I was incorrect on that fact on Face Check. I said that they had won. I looked that up and I was like, oh, okay, they hadn't won. I'm an idiot. And so my bad.
Yeah, I mean Sengoku, like the name that I've noticed on that roster, because I checked this earlier, is Loken.
Oh yeah,
Who-
Loken,
Yeah.
the OG Korean support player. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, bought later, but yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah. He was a support player back in the day.
That was the pillar that Reaper tried to build the team upon. Didn't quite work out there. So shout out to that Nation Focus Me.
Loken had some good years in LPL. Like in that 2020 JDG team, he was pretty solid. The whole thing was like, leave Loken 1v2 bot lane, he'll be fine no matter what, and like Lumao would just roam with Kanavi.
Give me one thing you are most excited about for this new MSI format, and then we'll close
everything. I am excited for everything. This format fucking rules. This is legitimately one of the best formats in esports. Maybe not the way you qualify for it from LEC, but it has everything you want. We have the GSL groups. There's a last chance qualifier just in case you don't get there via the group stage. And then you get a full 8-team double elimination bracket. So there's basically, I just love everything about it.
Dom?
No, I mean I like the format. I think it's gonna be sick to go through this insane format and then go to Worlds and have it be single elim again.
Oh, you haven't even mentioned the terrible Swiss, which everybody seems to think is a good idea if they're a fan because they've never watched Counter-Strike and they haven't seen how it just completely fucks up everything in the majors and is horrible. And Counter-Strike is a game in which you can actually kind of do seeding properly because there's constant international competition, but it will be completely impossible to do that seeding in a Swiss system in League of Legends. So it'll be really terrible. You guys just wait. Wait for that one. That's an easy prediction to make a slam dunk. The Swiss system will be awful for Worlds.
Wait, is there Swiss? Is there like a GSL group stage in this MSI?
Yeah, for play-ins. Yeah, for play-ins.
Oh.
Yeah,
oh,
the
yeah,
first,
yeah, okay.
the
Oh,
first
okay,
stage is 2 groups of 4.
Yeah, no, I thought you meant in like the bracket.
Yeah, the winners will qualify to the bracket, and then both second place teams play a best of 5 to see who the third team who gets in is. And then
That's
we
solid.
have, so we have all of that. So basically, we're just waiting for the LEC 1 seed. So Gen GT1 JDG, it'll be whoever the LEC 1 seed is, and then Cloud9 are automatically in the bracket. 3 other teams qualify. The other 8 teams are going into the 2 groups.
Yeah.
So. We're waiting for the draw as well. This draw should, I guess,
I feel like the draw is going to be like mega important though.
Yeah,
the draw is a little bit scary here.
Oh, Golden Guardians just get stuck in there with like PSG Town. Actually, yeah. Which one out of the two?
But here's the thing: there's redundancy. So because the second place teams in each group play a best of 5 against each other to determine the 3rd seed, you just have to make top 2 in your group to have a shot to make it into the actual bracket stage. So the draw doesn't matter that much because there'll be a cross bracket thing. Like if you take 3rd or 4th place in your group, you do not deserve to go to the bracket stage period. So the format's good.
Licorice. He has a 2 in his name, dog. You can beat him. All right.
Yeah, find his name.
All right. So that's
And
MSI.
his
We'll
name
take
isn't
it.
just 2. That would be a
Uh,
fucking gangster name. His name was just
It's just
the
2.
number 2. Yeah,
Oh
hell
my
yeah.
gosh, that'd be a marketing nightmare if I'm like his like team manager. I'm like, all right, how do we get all these socials and stuff? That would suck.
I mean, EDG's mid laner's name used to just be you.
That's true. That's true. That probably sucked. Like, how would you be able to market anything, get anything there? No traction in SEO. No one would be able to search him. Other RNGU. Okay. So with that, best
Who's
of
your
luck.
favorite for MSI? Is it JDG, Dom?
I thought he said it was JDG.
I mean, I'm not even memeing when I feel like T1 should still be the favorite.
Oh
But-
my
Oh,
god! Here's what Dom's
like-
gonna do, guys. When we do this show, at MSI, he's gonna be like, "Yeah, T1 were chokers. I told you guys." So you think T1's gonna win the
No,
event?
I don't think they're going to win the event.
Who
I think
do you
they
think is gonna win the event?
Yeah, that's what I want.
I mean, I think that Gen G is just the obvious one, but that's like just so boring. Like you just say Gen G is going to win because they're like the favorite always comes from Korea, right? So it has to be a Korean team, right? It has to be a Korean
You
team.
think it's gonna be a Korean team? I want your thoughts, Dom.
Yeah.
I mean, I think RNG is going to win. I think Xiaohu's going to fucking take it.
Oh,
He's going to rejoin the team. And
they're gonna trade. They're gonna trade. When's the roster
look,
lock?
it depends.
By the way,
It
they're just
depends,
gonna
like-
trade Yagao for
Look,
Xiaohu right before
It's
MSI.
gonna. It depends, right? Like I guess if I was to like bet money on it, and I'm like, what's the highest % chance I'm correct? I would just say Gen G.
All
like,
right.
But like, I think JDG could easily win. I think
I agree.
JDG could easily win. So like,
I think
I want
agree. I think Gen G
JDG
has
to
the
win.
biggest. I think Gen G has the largest chance to win.
percentage
But
chance. But like that, I don't even like. I hate having to do predictions because it feels like that's what you have to say. You have to go based off percentage chance and like eliminate all the other factors of competition.
all right.
All right.
Is there? Here's an interesting question. Is there a team that we think is going to do surprisingly well at MSI based on fan expectations? Like who do you think will surprise the
Lions.
fans the most? Mad Lions.
They haven't even qualified yet.
No.
Whoever the second seed is from Europe, I think will supersede expectations.
I don't know. I feel like it's just gonna end up being just top 4. Like I can't see any of the Asian teams, Korean or Chinese, not being top 4.
Really?
can't
I feel like a
imagine.
Chinese team always chokes in these situations.
Yeah, there's always one.
I mean, when there's 4, yeah. When there's 2, like I just
We don't
I
know. We've never seen this before.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I would think that BLG would still just end up beating G2 and still just end up beating like C9 in their current form. Like I think that BLG will have. I think the problem is that when you look at BLG, their biggest strength is the biggest weakness of every team that comes in from the West, which is that all the Western top laners kind of suck.
Except
And
Bud.
BLG has just one of the like best mechanical top laners in the world.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty big issue. Although I do kind of want to see the Adam Bin matchup, and I wonder how that would go.
I just don't think that that the stuff that he does will work against Ben.
I don't think it will either.
I feel like Adam is like kind of like he has like intimidation where like players are like because he's kind of memed and stuff. He has that like, oh, you don't lose to Adam, bro. Like you're gonna lose to Adam in like else. It's like all the LEC top laners, they don't want to lose to Adam for some reason because they feel like he's a cheeser. They feel like he's not that good. I don't think Ben will like give him some like random respect. He'll just fucking play the game. But, like yeah, my matchup just wins. Like I don't know, you're playing fucking Darius and Tanar, you just lose.
Yeah, Adam's also just like a surprisingly low economy top laner. Like he's basically there just to draw pressure early on to allow BDS to get dragons and then scale Crowny into the late game. And so I'm not sure that tactic is really going to work against top tier competitors. I don't think anybody's going to be super concerned. And he also requires just a fuckload of setup in the draft in order to make that work. Like you have to have a lot of CC to make Darius relevant in the mid and late game. And he also plays without TP a lot of the time.
Even in these games, like so Gnar is Ben's best champion, right? Like Gnar and Kennen so Kennen gets banned like almost every single game against Ben, right? Like you just never give it to him 1, 2, 3. So it's ban versus bin all the time. And then Gnar is something that's always banned against him as well. So unless you're going to invest multiple bans and even like try to force a Fiora Darius matchup, which bin is actually good at, right? Like bin can play Fiora Darius, and I would have confidence in him being able to win those matchups, or he could play like Jax.
He certainly has a lot of experience in LPL in those matchups.
I don't know. I can't see that happen. I mean, maybe it does happen. Maybe BDS just ends up fucking going to MSI and they just I don't know. Maybe fucking bin is just getting clapped by Adam. But God, that reality is just so hard for me to envision. It's so hard for me to envision.
All right, guys, we're doing a lot of posturing about teams that aren't even there anymore. You know, like as much as make the Mad Lion jokes and chat,
JDG can win. T1 can't be the favorite because now they are confirmed chokers.
No, I think that. So I think that Gen G is the favorite. Okay, here's the question: do you think that betting sites are going to open with T1 as the favorite or Gen G as the
yes?
I think if they open with T1 as the favorite, people should bet against T1. The thing is, the T1 fans like push the line so heavily in favor of T1 all the time, like to ridiculous degrees. When I saw the finals, it was like 4.0 odds for Gen G, which is just ridiculous. Like that was just ridiculous. There's no way they were that big of underdogs.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, what I told you guys last week, where T1 was 3-1 odds to win the series when they were down 2-0. Like that just tells you enough. Because like normally the odds will be like 10 or like 15 to like
1. Yeah.
It'll be like 15 to 1. Like you're down 2-0.
Yeah.
Like it's so hard to win from that point.
All right. Well, top 4 all Asian teams based whatever the bracket gives us later on as well. We'll find out, and then best of luck to Levi over in Vietnam, and our 4 teams still remaining, or I guess 3 teams vying for that last spot over in EMEA. All right, to close it out, we've got another certified fresh one. It's a certified banger of the week. What else would it be other than the LPL finals between BLG and JDG? And to get into that one, let's pass it on over to Dom.
Yeah, certified banger. I mean, there's not much to say here. JDG rematched BLG, and the story of the series was completely different than the first time they met, where the first time you obviously had BLG winning a lot of the early games, and it made JDG look super sketchy. I mean, Bin was smashing 369 in all the games top. In this series, even though it was a 3-1, it never felt like BLG could win this series. Like, BLG was just heavily outmatched. JDG was winning the early games, and when they start winning like early games, they're early like dragon fights and their setups and the way that they take team fights, I think is just top class. Like if you put them in a 5v5, even gold or ahead in position, I feel like they're just one of the most consistent teams in the entire world because the players are all so insane mechanically. And they have the other dimension of the fact that their top laner is a really, really insane frontline player. If you look at 369 and how he plays Cassante in a lot of these fights, or how he's playing Gragas in these fights, the way that he uses his CC, the way he tanks damage, it's next level. Like he is so fucking good, and this is his biggest strength.
His flanks are crazy good. His teleport's good. His map awareness to counter plays is super good.
Yep, he's just insane. So when JDG has a lead, they look really fucking scary. And individually, I think the players were just playing in better form. I mean, Kanavi looked like Kanavi again. Knight on Ahri, he looked top tier. When you see Knight on Ahri, you're like, damn, there's 2 Ahris in the world that you like seeing. It's fucking Knight and it's Chovy. Like these 2 guys on Ahri just make it look like a complete different champion. So, I mean, I thought it was a pretty convincing win for JDG, and it was something that instills some confidence going into MSI, because if they limped through the series and they just won through having like better team play or better team fights than BLG, but they still had the really weird early games, you probably wouldn't feel like they have a legitimate shot to win. But the fact that they were showing that they can win early game, and you see how they play with their leads, I mean, if you're going to have team fights that are set up well, I don't think there's a better AD carry you could have in the entire world than Ruler when it comes to playing cleanup AD carry in fights. So all this huge for JDG, and then on top of that, I would say that the meta is actually really good for them right now. Like you have all the champions that Knight is good at being viable, and then having like Ruler be able to play Jinx with like weak side top, it just feels so good for the team. So yeah, I was pretty happy with the series. It started earlier than it was supposed to start. It started half an hour early, so I actually missed part of game 1.
What the fuck? How does
Yeah,
that happen?
On the Google schedule, it said that the games would start at 4, but apparently it was what it was supposed to say is the opening ceremony starts at 3, and then whenever the open ceremony is over, then the games just start. So the game started like half an hour before like the Google schedule said the games would start, where normally it just starts at 4 a.m. every single day.
How did you get that answer? You like reached out, Google, tell me what the fuck happened. And they're like, sorry, Mr. Rivera, it was actually supposed to be, it was an input error.
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird. But yeah, I mean, it was a good finals, I think. I think it was nice for JDG. They really just look like the best team in LPL. And a lot of people will complain about like super teams, right? They'll be like, oh, super teams, of course, it's like so easy. It's actually more rare that the super team does what JDG did and they actually win with the roster that's supposed to be a super team than just like, you know, flounder or end up in like second or third or choke it at the end. Like so many super teams you see around the world fail. So the fact that JDG was able to get it together and actually like win with the super team, I think they definitely deserve credit for that.
Yeah, Home of Life, last year's TL, last year's Vitality. Like you can go down the line every year.
This year, Vitality, top esports.
Hey, Vitality can still make
they're
MSI.
Still alive. Yeah, they're still
alive,
man.
Tom.
Yep.
That was your boy Bo, man. He ran it.
Yep, he fucking sprinted it.
The greatest tragedy of Vitality not being at MSI is we will never get the Bo owner matchup that we've all been feverishly waiting for.
Yeah.
Yeah, feverishly, Monty. All right. That is your certified bang of the week. You want to go ahead and get a palate cleanser, go watch that one. And it'll be a good one for you. There you have it. Another episode of Power Spike in the books. Actually, before we close it out, in honor of Bjergsen, I'm bringing back, it's Dgon's Fact of the Week, sponsored by no one. Top 10 champions for Bjergsen. Which one was his lowest win percentage? I'll give them to you, the champions.
All right.
So in order of most played, it was Syndra, Azir, Orianna, Zillion, LeBlanc, Twisted Fate, and then Corki, Talia, Ari, Rise. Which one was the lowest win rate?
Talia.
Okay, there's one guess there for Monty. Tom?
I was going to go TF.
Okay, no, both those guys sit at a 67.7% win rate, 23-11 for Twisted Fate, 21-10 for Talia. Those are some of his highest win rate champs. Go again, because there's like basically a tie.
I would go Rise then.
So then those were the two correct ones. Corki at a 48.5 and Rise at a 48.4.
Yeah, I just feel like Rise.
Those were popular in kind of the lowest part of his career, I guess.
Well, no, I mean, I just think about all the Rise, like the Rise worlds where it's like, oh, they went Rise Jace. You remember like Rise Jace would always come back at the end of worlds. It's like, all right, the do or die game.
I also remember his really terrible Corki builds. That's why I picked that one too.
Yeah, that was last year mainly. His old Corki builds are fine, but I guess he did lose some Corki games in like finals.
Yeah, his lowest win rate champion that he's played at least double digits, Silas, 14 games, 42% win rate. And then it was Rise and Corki after that in double digits. But either way, again, his highest win rate was his highest most played champion, Syndra, 67%. He wins 2 out of the 3 games. It's so that's pretty nuts. We tip a hat and have a drink for a career well spent in Bjergsen, everyone. All right, we've got what? How many matches left? 3? 3 matches left. The 2, 1, 2. Yeah, 3 matches left over in the LEC. Vietnam still. Levi's the only player with any international experience in the, I think, 4 teams that are still available. The 20 players, only Levi has international experience over there in Vietnam. So it might be a new guard coming through, or it might just be more of the same with Gigabyte Marines finishing up. After that, we'll have a complete MSI picture there. We'll go a little bit deeper into predictions on that, breaking down the LEC vision and more. Monty, where would people find you this week?
On Summoning Insight, which is on Thursday this week instead of Tuesday.
Sweet. Thursday, not Tuesday. And then Dom?
I'm doing all of EU Masters starting tomorrow. So
whoa.
All of EU Masters. And then LEC. So normal stuff.
All right, sweet. I've got an interview with Ignar I'm releasing, who's going to chat about Dignitas stuff. I've put feelers out to Owners and general managers, if they want to recap last season and talk about this season, haven't heard back from anyone yet. Other than
I'd really like to see that actually.
Yeah, other than Dominic Callis, at least the former head of esports over at TSM, he did reach out and say, "Appreciate it. I moved on with my career. I loved my time over at TSM." Blah blah blah. At least he responded.
That's such a TSM answer. Yeah, I loved it. That's why I left. Like I was just having such a great time. It's like when a player gets picked from their team, and then the team just puts out like a fucking statement on the player. They're like, he was great to work with, an incredible player, great shot caller, good looking, like everything is perfect about him. It's like, so then why did you fucking kick him? You know, like
all right. Now I got to read it verbatim so that I don't get in trouble here. He said, "Appreciate you thinking of me, but I'm going to pass. Enjoyed my time in esports, starting with KSV/Gen G and TSM, but currently focused on other passions." So it wasn't just like I was specifically going to ask about TSM, but he highlighted everything and has apparently moved on from esports. So
yeah, you know what I was thinking back on TSM since we were talking about it is when Monty was talking about Bjergsen not being one of the highest paid players anymore. I mean, how could he be one of the highest paid players when TSM players are making $750K a year each? Like, there's no chance. Like he can't compete anymore.
He can't. Sorry, he made like twice that much money last year, so I think he'll be okay somehow.
Well, the TSM players now is make league minimum or walk, and we've seen Maple disappear from the database, so we'll see what happens. All right, guys. Maybe I'll see you at Coachella if you're going to be at Coachella. I'm sure our viewership has a high Coachella and watching Power Spike crossover. If you haven't followed, make sure to follow all of our socials over at Last Free Nation. And we'll catch you guys for next episode of Power Spike. See ya.